All right, welcome back to the Comics Multiverse. This evening, um, well, as if you've watched the show before or seen any of my interviews, I'm involved with the website Comic Watch, and every week we do a thing where we spotlight the different Kickstarters, Zoop projects that are out there, try to bring a little more attention to some of those projects that maybe you haven't heard about and but need a lot more attention. My guest this evening is Justin Pearson, who's whose Kickstarter Shag kicks off on the March 1st. So let me bring him in. Hey,
Hello.
and as I screwed it up last time, what does Shag stand for?
It is the Superheroes of America Guild. Yeah.
American. All right. Well, before we get into that and talking about the Kickstarter, let's find out a bit about you and your history with comics. Do you remember the first comic book you read, or the one that kind of made you want to search out more?
Well, I'm not 100% sure what was first. My stepdad had the VHS tape of the Pride of the X-Men video, which was the animated X-Men show before the 90s one that we all know and love. And lose something for a sec.
No, you're so.
Okay, cool. My screen just went blank for a second. I'm like, oh, sorry about that. But yeah, so through that, I learned that there was also comics about these cool characters, and I was a big Batman fan as a kid, of course. So I'm not sure what my first actual comic was. I think it was either like my earliest comic memories are either an issue of Nightfall, where I was just so confused because I'm like, what? Bruce Wayne's accused of murder and he's not Batman right now. Like, what's going on? Or another confusing first entry for me was an early X-Men issue I grabbed was like right smack in the middle of Phalanx Covenant. So like all the X-Men I knew and loved were gone. And it's like Banshee, the White Queen, and a few kids. I'm like, what's going on? And that's the thing, though, is like that seemed like it would be like a nice exit point, you know, it was like you just come into all this confusion, but I was so intrigued. I was like, what's going on? I gotta know. And I was kind of hooked on comics ever since. Yeah, and that's my first origin. I don't know precisely when I decided I wanted to start making them myself, but it's definitely something I've kind of done in one form or another since childhood.
Okay. Well, let's segue into Shag and the Kickstarter. Tell us a little bit about give us the big picture of of your project.
Yeah, so Shag is kind of a superhero, I guess parody technically, but I think of it as just like it's the workplace comedy of superhero books. It's Avengers meets Parks and Rec as far as like like the elevator pitch goes, and basically like my whole thing with like superhero stuff, like obviously main Marvel DC stuff, lots of good stuff there, and then there's a lot of parody stuff servicing the kind of like edgy gritty side of things. Like you get the hyper violence and the really like low bar like gross out humor in things like Invincible and The Boys. But I was like, what about the like kind of more PG-13 kind of wholesome, like you just want to hang out with these folks kind of story? And that's kind of where Shag comes from, more or less. Yeah, so that's where that came from.
So who are the characters? Who I mean, you sent me the PDF to read, and I read it and I really enjoyed it. So tell us a little bit about the main characters and what the main conflict is for this volume.
Yeah, so the subtitle of the volume is Crisis in PR, and it's basically after a superpowered battle leaves a national monument kind of in rubble, that kind of kicks off this kind of like really just string of bad publicity and loss of faith from the public for S.H.A.G, and they have to figure out how to deal with a problem that they can't punch, essentially. And at the forefront of that is the team founder and leader, Solar Max, who basically has like a really public-facing blunder when talking to the press, and just digs the hole deeper. And the whole thing is about him basically coming to terms that sometimes just going out there and doing your superhero thing and fighting the bad guys is not the whole job. And so to the supporting cast with that is, of course, the rest of S.H.A.G. We have Alacrity, kind of his more or less second command, good friend. She's a speedster and maybe takes things a little too seriously. And then we have the Argonaut, who's kind of sort of like a Spider-Man meets Iron Man kind of character. He's got a powered suit of armor, and he's a little like quippy, but he's not like the rich billionaire like Tony Stark is. He's more self-made. So his stuff is like a little bulkier, little more jam. But yeah, so that's the Argonaut. We have Queen Titan, our resident alien from outer space, who was a monarch where she came from, and left to find help for her planet, and then found Earth and is like, oh, that's so much worse here, so I need to fix it here. So she stuck around. And then we have the youngest members of the team. We have Atomic Spectre and the Phalanx 5. Phalanx 5 can multiply themselves, and Atomic Spectre is a former spy who can go somewhat intangible and phase kind of like Pride, and has level energy blast kind of deal. If I, did my job right, or that you kind of, fall in love with over the course of the story and really learn, come to root for. But as they, basically deal with these problems, and mostly deal with a pig-headed Solar Max being stubborn and unwilling to change.
So, when you were writing the book, was there one character that maybe you didn't, you know, you just had in there as like a stand-in, that as you worked the story, they became more of a enjoyable character that you wanted to develop more?
That's a good question. I'd say Solar Max and Alacrity were both pretty fully formed, as was Argonaut. And I would say the most surprising characters for me were probably Phalanx 5 and Atomic Spectre. They, in some ways, kind of end up the most competent characters. Like, they kind of move the plot along the most in the story, while they're like all spinning their wheels. They were pretty fun, and with Phalanx 5 being like the kind of class clown of the group and the funny one, I just had a lot of fun just coming up with their goofs, and the other like shenanigans they'd get into, and yeah, I think also like having some of the quieter like personal moments, like when they're like not in costume, really kind of gave the story a little more heart than it necessarily would have gotten otherwise.
Okay. So now you drew this. You did the art too. So how long did it take you to, you know, do the draw, write, and then put it together?
Entirely too long. So I mean, obviously, like someone at my level of complete lack of anyone knowing about me in comics means that I'm not doing this as a career as of yet. So I've got my full-time day job that takes up a lot of time. So I just gotta find the moments in my spare time to like work on it. And yeah, it's honestly like the writing itself. Writing comes easiest and most natural to me. And like anyone in comics will tell you, of course, that writing is, if not easier, then definitely faster than drawing. But yeah, so I actually, the first draft of the 5th chapter, because I originally planned to do it as single issues and half did that. But the first draft of the 5th chapter, I actually wrote in a day. And obviously there were revisions and stuff, but I was like super proud of that. I was like, heck yeah. And then drawing took me 5 ever. But I am admitted very slow and not a very well practiced one. If in an ideal world, I'd have gobs of money I could throw at other artists and collaborate with them, which I would absolutely love. But until then, I'm stuck with myself. Yeah.
So looks like you work digitally with the art?
Yeah, I actually have, it is mostly digital, but I have a hybrid system that I was doing with S.H.A.G and that I really like because I really love inking traditionally. I never got the hang of like different brushes and stuff in a drawing program. It always looks so stiff when I go straight to inking digitally. So I would do my layouts and my light pencils digitally, print that out on like an 1117 comic board, ink that, scan it back in, and then color it. When I was coloring, my sister Amanda was kind enough to color the first couple chapters for me, but I realized how much of her time I was taking and wanted her to do her own art projects. So I let her off the hook after a couple of issues and had to pony up and figure out coloring.
So tell me about the colorist that you had to pony up for.
Yeah, I mean, I you know, it's definitely a skill I'm still learning. I think I did an okay job. I think it's largely clear and you can read it. But like I'm not gonna be winning any Eisners anytime soon for it. But I basically I just watched like all the like YouTube tutorials and different like color streams to just even begin to wrap my head around it because it just does not come naturally to me. I can recognize good color when I see it, but I just have a hard time conceptualizing how do you get from point A to point B on that. But yeah, I watch a lot of like Nick Filardi has a Twitch stream and YouTube channel. He's a comics colorist for anyone not familiar, who does very good work, and he's very accessible. So I while I'm definitely not up to any kind of standards, I'm trying to learn from him and Bill because he has like a Discord too and stuff that I'm on. I kind of mostly lurk because I'm not super active online, but yeah, but yeah. So I just try and pick up stuff where I can, and then a lot of it's just learning by doing. Which of course the age old artist only seeing their flaws. As soon as I was done with, I was like, well, I could do that better. But
Yeah.
that's pretty standard fare for any artist, I feel.
So let's kind of get into the Kickstarter, which launches on the March 1st, correct?
Hey, did you lose me?
No, I'm good.
Okay,
I didn't hear you, but it's recording. I set it up to record locally, so
gotcha.
this
Okay,
is why I don't.
sorry, I
This
don't.
is why I don't record live.
Yeah, just for the tech issue stuff. Yeah, this is yeah, sorry if I'm making anything weird about it. So yeah, Kickstarter launches March 1st. So it's just a few more days. And I'm excited and nervous.
Now, is this your first Kickstarter?
It is going to be my first. Yeah, it's Shag's not my first comic, but it's the first one I felt was to a quality that I might actually be able to convince people to buy it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are what are the different reward levels that you're offering for this campaign?
Yeah, since it's my first one, I wanted to keep it pretty light and straightforward, just to keep all the different variables more or less in check. So I've got a tier for the PDF, the physical book, and then I have a retailer bundle, so shops can get it if they want. And then my favorite tiers are the art print tiers. So I got some friends and artists that I follow online to do some pinups of each of the members of S.H.A.G. So I have two tiers regarding that. One where you just pick one of the prints if you don't want to commit to the whole bundle, and then another tier where you can get the whole group. And I also have the prints as available as add-ons. So if you say only want a couple of them, you can do that. But after a couple price wise, it just makes sense to do the whole thing.
Yeah,
But yeah, so
I can see
pretty straightforward.
that. So, who are your writing and artistic influences?
Oh gosh. I would say some of my favorite writers, as someone who came in, like I obviously from here I've been reading when I started really reading comics like regularly. That was right at the peak era of Bendis and Fraction. So those are some of my favorites. And then as far as art is concerned, where do I even start? Stuart Immonen, he's definitely on like my Mount Olympus, my pantheon of artists. Geez, forgotten. Yeah, no, so Stuart Immonen, Lanil Yu, anyone whose last name is Kubert. um, yeah, there's far too many to list. I don't know if any of them had any direct necessarily style influence on me personally. I'm not 100% sure what my style is yet, but I definitely, for S.H.A.G went for definitely more of like a, that kind of like a mix between like indie and superhero like stock, art.
Mhm.
But yeah, all those artists I admire dearly and more. And definitely when I'm looking for inspiration, it's their stuff I'm looking at. Chris Samney is another big one. Love what he does with just the stark black and whites. Oh, crazy good. Yeah. So
All right. Well, would you like to play 5 questions?
yes, I love silly
Okay.
games.
Question number one. You're trapped on a desert island and you can only have 5 comics with you. What are they?
All right. Clarifying question: can they be changed, or do they have to be seamless used?
I'll allow trades and
Okay.
omnibuses and
Right? I'll build a raft out of all the giant comics. Now they'd sink me like gosh. Okay. Desert Island Comics. Let's go with I got Hawkeye.
Hmm.
Let's see. Uh Scott Pilgrim. If I had to pick one of the volumes, I would say like 3 or 4. If I can't have
Okay.
like the box set. Let's see. That's 2. Oh my gosh. So ill prepared for this question. I the Kelly Sue's recent Wonder Woman Historia release,
Okay.
absolutely gorgeous. Can't that was mind-bogglingly just insane. That was so good. Let's see. I'm like picturing my bookshelf in my mind right now and be like, what else is on there? Honestly, I recently read the first trade of Kaya by Wes Craig. That's really good.
Okay.
Like, if I had to pick a release from like this last year or so, that's definitely going to be in there. His art's so good. I think that's 4, right? One more.
One more.
um, uh, Batman on Halloween. Get a classic
Okay.
in there. Yeah.
Yeah. Good choice. Question number 2: Star Wars or Star Trek?
For me personally, I've always been a Star Wars guy. I love and respect Star Trek. Don't get me wrong, but I was just raised on the wars, and definitely get a little more into sci-fi fantasy as opposed to hard sci-fi.
Hmm.
Yeah, but again, no
Have you
disrespect
been?
to Star Trek.
No. Have you? Are you following any of the current series for the Star Wars or?
Yeah, I think I catch most everything. I honestly haven't gotten into the animated stuff just because the backlog's gotten too big for me to jump into yet. But my girlfriend absolutely loves it. She's crazy about Bad Batch, really loves Tech, thinks he's the secret new character guy that they're introducing. But but yeah, as far as my personal cred goes, I watched all the live action stuff. I think Andor and Mando season are my favorite of the new stuff.
Mhm. Okay.
Although oh dang, Obi-Wan was really good too, though. Anyway,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean they all have their ups and downs, but I think I finally Andor and Mando season 1 are the best of the new stuff.
Okay. Question number 3: Marvel or DC or Image approaches you and says you can have any character that you want to tell a story. Who is it?
Hmm. My personal writing affinities and capabilities, I think, would probably lend themselves decently well to like Spider-Man. Like if you read Shag, so I like my quips. But yeah, no, I think that kind of like the self-deprecation and angst of Pete and his Parker luck, mixed with just the wisecracking and always trying to do the right thing, even if you're gonna get your butt kicked halfway across town because of it. I think that would probably be where I'm most comfortable and best suited.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite parts of your book was the bank robbers wearing the works of art on their face.
Oh, I love the Rogues Gallery. I was so proud of them when I came up with that. And then even more proud, I was like, oh, I'll just like clip some JPEGs and use those as the actual art, because Lord knows I would just butcher any attempt to recreate these masterworks, right? Yeah, no, I love the Rogues Gallery. If and this is a big if, right? But if I ever revisit Shag, I will 100% be getting them back in there. Like that, they're definitely gonna be recurring, kind of like little butt heads. I don't know if you do swearing or not, so I'll chill on that. But Yeah, no, I love the Rogues Gallery.
So, question 4: where do you stand on variant covers? Good, bad, indifference?
I think they've gotten a bit out of hand. I've had to tell my local comic store, like, please just give me the A covers. It is such a freaking gamble with some of the variants. Like, sure, sometimes you'll get a Peach Momoko, and those are lovely and great and whatever, but I'm not like a collector in like an investment sense. I believe in buying comics to read them. So I would say I lean towards negative feelings towards variants, but I think they have their place. I think if a publisher could limit themselves to like one or two, then and rein it in a bit, I think would be a better place creatively and as far as just not being just so overwhelmed or having to like guess whether or not you've gotten this issue already because the cover doesn't say the issue number on it on the front or like you can't tell what comic it is. Anyway, yeah, I think Marvel is just particularly egregious about that, in my opinion. But
Yeah, they are. All right, last question. Let's see. Let's see. I should have prepared for this, but
it's all good. It's all good.
um, biggest. What's the biggest problem the comics industry faces, and how would you solve it?
Oh, hey, I think my screen blacked out for a sec. Did you actually get your question out?
Oh, it was biggest problem that the industry currently faces, and how would you solve it?
Oh my god. Oh my gosh, that's a loaded question. um that's I think that's okay. Industry at large, I'm trying to think and not just answer for superheroes.
Hmm.
Uh I think it's just I think despite all the headway we've made in the last 20 years or so, I think a lot of people still think of this as a starter medium, like a kid's stuff. Like this is the thing that more important mediums mine for content, right? Like Marvel and DC are kind of Ouroborosing a little bit with their with their movie and TV content. And don't get me wrong, I'm still dyed in the wool like Marvel Zombie. Like I'm still hitting those theaters every time for the new MCU movies, but I feel like the creatively they are trying to like serve two masters. Like they want to keep all the current continuity and make it accessible to new. And I said I wasn't going to answer for superheroes, but here I am answering superheroes. So I think they just they just need to get out of their own way and let their creators tell interesting stories. Let them really kind of just go for broke, good or bad. And I think that obviously there's some places where there's creators clearly doing that. So it's never a full binary, but I think they could lean into it more. And then yeah, so back to the industry at large, I think just having more people and the right people pay attention to it and put the spotlights on it for the merits of the medium, right? Like it's like yes, it's superheroes and it's this and it's that and it could be anything. Like I just actually reread Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics, and like every time I'm just like, man, this guy had it freaking nailed in like early '90s. It's just as far as like the potential that this medium has. Obviously, he's not the only one, but I didn't read any of their books, so. But yeah, no, I think a lot of it is just people just don't read enough, and
Okay.
or people still have stigma against books with pictures, as it were, and yeah, I think it's a super valuable reading tool, and I think that might actually have a generational shift coming up with how much OGNs and stuff have proliferated for like young adult readers and stuff. So hopefully that translate into a big boom in adult and all ages and whatever graphic novels going forward. But yeah, I guess if I could fix it, I would get people just to instantaneously, if Infinity Gauntlet snap, everyone understands that comics is everything.
Yeah.
Or can be anything. Yeah.
Sounds good. Thanks for doing the 5 questions.
Yeah.
As we wrap up here, kind of give us one more pitch for the Kickstarter and where people can find your stuff.
Yeah. So me personally, I'm on Blue Sky, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Mostly Blue Sky out of all of those, but it's all at Justo, high school nickname JHUSTOE. And then S.H.A.G will be on Kickstarter March 1st. It is the story of superheroes dealing with a crisis in public relations, and it is the marriage between Parks and Rec and Avengers conceptually. And I hope you all check it out, and I hope you dig it.
All right. Oh, we'll definitely be following it on Comic Watch and helping you promote it. But it was great chatting with you about the book, and maybe if there's a volume 2, we'll come back, we'll get back together, and we'll debrief about how this one went and talk about what's next for S.H.A.G.
Oh, that would be awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Chad.
All right. Well, thank you, and have a good evening.
You too.